To the contrary.
First, early voting patterns and what they say about an election just 2 weeks away. Then, behind the headlines, Freeze Frame, addressing social justice through performance art.
Hello, I'm Erbe. Welcome to the Contrary, a discussion of news and social trends from diverse perspectives. Up first, the election is already underway.
NBC News reports more than 1.5 million votes were already cast nationwide as of last weekend, more than 1 million of them in the 12 battleground states. But these numbers represent a sliver of early and mail-in ballots expected to be cast, a full 35% of the U.S. electorate. That said, early voting numbers may be as or more important than polls in predicting the outcome. At least they're placing many more twists and turns in the road to the White House. Huffington Post reports early voting and polls in the southern battleground states of Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia reveal Hillary Clinton is poised to do better than Barack Obama did in 2012. While in the Midwestern states of Iowa and Ohio, Donald Trump is poised to do better than Mitt Romney did in 2012. Politico reports Trump has little chance of capturing the 270 electoral votes needed to win the Electoral College without winning North Carolina and Florida. An NBC Wall Street Journal poll this week shows in a two-way race, Clinton leads by 8 points, with majority support of 51%, to Trump's 43% among likely voters. An NBC News SurveyMonkey poll shows Clinton with an 18-point margin over Trump among likely women voters. Trump leads Clinton among likely men voters by 7 points. Lastly, Trump seems to have created an internet storm by women voters angry with his appellation of Clinton as a, quote, nasty woman in the debate. They've adopted the term as their own and use it to rattle Trump supporters.
So, Congresswoman Edwards, what's more important this election season, watching polls or early voting results?
Well, finally, it's about early voting, get out the vote. This is where the rubber meets the road.
I think we should wait until Election Day to find out. We're looking forward to seeing a Republican in the White House, and I think Donald Trump has a fair chance.
I think what's key here is that you see women putting in absentee ballot requests at higher numbers, which shows this is a key election for women.
I think it's still a question of how volatile the population is. I think voters are still largely undecided.
You think voters are still largely undecided? What polls
I
showing
think
that?
To some degree it's become socially unacceptable to say that you support even Clinton, but mainly Trump. And so I think in the privacy of the voting booth, people may surprise. I think the final results may come out in Trump's favor.
Well, given what Donald Trump did in the final debate in terms of women calling Hillary a nasty woman and starting this whole Twitter storm and an online storm about women embracing the term and calling themselves, is there anything he could do? And the way that he is losing the women's vote, which means for the first time since Ronald Reagan, if the polls prove true, a Republican won't even win married white women, which has always gone to Republican candidates for the White House since 1980. Is there any way he could get women back at this point?
Not a chance. I mean, I count myself as a nasty woman, and I think there are a lot of women out there who are doing exactly the same thing. And you can see it in the ballot requests. You can see it in the early vote demographic numbers. And, you know, it is shocking that Donald Trump is losing white suburban women voters, but he is, and this is all about, you know, all of his language, the fat shaming, and all of the rest. It's finally added up so that now we're trying to get out that vote, and we're starting to see that in early vote night. I'm absolutely convinced we're going to see that for Hillary Clinton when November 8th comes.
Well, I think we should still wait until Election Day. I think a lot of women did feel offended by his comments, but at the same time, they're still holding out their vote. I mean, we'd like to still see Republican policies enacted. We would like to see strong leadership, conservative leadership in the White House.
But, you know, my question is, how much is early voting changing everything? In 2012, 35% of the country voted early. It's almost as if it is making obsolete having to go to the polls on Election Day. Do you agree with that?
Well, yeah, I think definitely a lot of people are turning out their vote earlier just because of the polling day disasters, and lots of things can go wrong. And
bad weather, being stuck outside in long lines.
Yeah,
and they're doing it for convenience. I mean, not just the mail-in ballots, but the in-person early voting. There are extended early voting periods in a lot of states. I mean, in North Carolina, a battleground state, early voting has already started. Lines are forming even for the early vote. People want to cast their vote in this election, and I think we're going to see much stronger numbers than we saw in 2012.
There is some concern about early voting, though. A lot can happen in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure the press would cover it. Obviously, there have been, many of us on the right think that there have been a lot of scandals revealed by both WikiLeaks and these videos that have come out that have shown some very bad behavior on the part of Democrats. And so I think for many of us who look at early voting, we worry that something could break and people can't change their mind at that point.
Is there anything you would suggest to Donald Trump if you were Kellyanne Conway, who was a regular panelist on the show for 20 years?
Right.
To get back women, what would it be?
I think he really needs to return to talk about policy. Look, I think there's an awful lot.
But he talked more policy in the third debate than he had in the first two.
He needs to remind women, look, there are an awful lot of Trump supporters that if he started saying that he wants to raise taxes or limit access to guns, they might change their opinion on him. There are a lot of women that need to be reminded of the Hillary scandals. She is not even elected, and we already have email scandals and Benghazi, and now these tapes that have come out showing potential corroboration with voter fraud. He needs to hit her hard on those things. With a civil tone, hit her hard on those, and remind Americans that he is for lower taxes, less regulation, and remind them to check out his tax plan. He has some good information out there, but I think it's very, very important that he stick to policy and stay off Twitter.
Now, what's interesting is if you look at the voting trends, you'll see that the absentee ballot requests in key battleground states increased among women, and when? After the first debate. I mean, why? Because Hillary killed it. And, you know, I agree with Representative Edwards. I'm a nasty woman as well, proud to call myself one, ordering the T-shirt today. And I think that it's amazing because you see even traditionally Republican groups of voters, white married women, are now trending for Hillary. And the Hillary campaign is also cutting into the Catholic vote because these groups are finding Donald Trump's language unacceptable.
Well, and it's also about her demeanor.
Is it him
and it's
doing
about
himself in?
I mean, there's a lot of that, but I think people had an opportunity to look at the stage and ask who they could see as president. And they saw Hillary Clinton, her demeanor, her temperament, her understanding, her comprehensive understanding of the policies, both domestic and international, and they saw a president. And I think that they are beginning to cast their votes for that reason. And to the extent that there's anyone who's undecided, what they're undecided about is that there may be Republicans sitting out there undecided who say, I may not want to vote for Hillary, but I'm sure not going to vote for Donald Trump.
Well, I just wonder if he's his own worst enemy. And at the Al Smith dinner, he said, which was a largely Catholic audience, he said Hillary Clinton hates Catholics. Patently untrue, got booed like crazy, and now he's playing this game. Everybody seems to forget, by the way, that it was either the first or second debate. He said he would abide by the results of the election. Now it's, I will if I win. You know, he's even going back and forth on that kind of stuff. He can't help himself.
Well, he's definitely not a traditional career politician. He's not as polished, and he does come across You know, if he is going to be losing, he's not going to take that easily. He'll definitely be challenging the
Will there
results.
be riots if he
No,
by
I
his
hope not.
supporters?
No, I don't think so. I think most people believe in the American democracy, and they will accept the results on it.
Well, I mean, I think he has done really great damage and harm by suggesting, not just recently, but all along, that the process is rigged, and he's done damage. And so
Not
that
when he
damage
was
has to
winning.
be
Not
cured.
when he was ahead in the polls.
But on
There
the
was no
rigged question, can we also talk about the fact that you made the Catholic comment? As a Catholic, I am incredibly offended by what Hillary Clinton's campaign, people affiliated with her campaign, through the WikiLeaks information that we saw, the things that they were saying about the Catholic Church and Catholics specifically, I was very offended by that, and yet the press, with you being the exception, does not cover this. I mean, there is something, you know, he gets made fun of for suggesting that the election is rigged, and the press does not cover this. I mean, the voter fraud questions that have been brought up with those hidden cameras, these are serious questions, and I think the American, sure, he makes, you know, off-color remarks, but I think the American public is very concerned about what we see as.
Would you call it?
they're
Wait. Would you seriously? Would you call it off color that I grabbed a woman's the P word?
I'm not happy.
Or
with,
do you,
of course, I'm not
I mean,
happy. Yes.
Doesn't that?
Okay, but you know what?
Wait,
why
Julie,
yeah.
I'll let you.
Sure.
Let you talk. But doesn't just having done that, if I don't care who was running for president, anybody who said that, Democrat, Republican, and got caught on tape,
Sure.
There should be a line
I understand.
past which a presidential candidate cannot speak, and I think he's crossed that
I have
line.
no problem admitting that. I was disgusted and unhappy to hear that, but I'm also concerned about the press's unwillingness to cover some allegations made against former President Clinton. And Hillary Clinton's role in smearing the women that have accused him. They seem totally uninterested, which as a woman, I think that deserves equal time. So what frustrates me, I'm talking about rigging this election and the press being in the bag for Hillary. These are serious questions about the health of our democracy.
Our elections have, you know, more integrity than you can count around the world. People should have confidence in their vote, and that their vote is going to be counted. They should show up to vote, and I think it is really dangerous to go around suggesting, especially a presidential candidate, to suggest that there is something wrong with our elections and with our system. I think it's very dangerous.
There's a reason.
And I think it's dangerous to have a candidate and a campaign relying on what the Russians have done to try to interfere with our elections, which is what Donald Trump has done.
And I agree. And if I may,
let Jenifer.
I mean, I think that there's a reason why there's a 92% chance that Hillary Clinton is going to win this election. And that is because I think most Americans realize that this election is a fight for the morals of our country. I mean, the contrast is so clear. We have who could be the first woman president of our country running against a man who's widely alleged to be a sexual assailant. That is this election, and Michelle Obama put that so beautifully in her speech a week ago. So that's what's at stake in this country.
Last word, Saba.
I think we should still, you know, there's forgiveness and there's, you know, we still want a Republican White House. I think we believe
Is it mainly because of tax cuts?
Tax cuts, traditional family values, policy, pro-life stance. I think a lot of issues that Donald Trump.
What about immigration?
Yeah, we need comprehensive immigration reform along with secure borders.
But when you say comprehensive immigration reform, for Democrats, that's a very different thing than what it means for Republicans.
I think Donald Trump has helped bring that immigration debate to the forefront, and I think, you know, he does deserve credit. I think, you know, his policies are strong, and that's what I believe in, and I really hope that the people that he's surrounded himself with, the Republican establishment, if they win, they can turn this country around in a lot of really good ways.
Okay, let us know what you think. Please follow me on Twitter at Bonnie Erbé. From politics to the arts, behind the headlines, addressing social justice through art and dance. Freeze Frame, Stop the Madness is a theatrical production by and starring Debbie Allen, which is on limited tour. It addresses how African American lives intertwine with the police force.
I think the arts are very important in furthering the conversation of social justice. When I first came to LA to do Fame, the violence that was happening with the gangs and the police was just something I just could not get desensitized to, and I was always upset every time I would read in the paper of an innocent child that's killed in a crossfire, some child shot because of mistaken identity, or a policeman murdered. You know, it's just too much.
Actress, dancer, director, and producer Debbie Allen is debuting another theatrical narrative, Freeze Frame, at the Kennedy Center this fall. She hopes the play will bring attention to gun violence and its effect in the community through dance.
Freeze Frame Stop the Madness is a fusion of every art that I have mastered and am involved with. It's cinema, it's dance, it's music, it's drama, it's art.
You called it your church?
It is a very spiritual thing to be an artist and to dance and to do what I do. It is very spiritual. It comes from a place that is very pure. It comes from a place that is not always very clear. It comes from a place where you must take chances and you bring people in. I've gathered so many young people in what I do, and it is my church. My work is my church. And I love what I do, and I think I've been ordained to do it.
How did you create the moods, and how did you deal with all the stories in the show? Tell us about that.
Well, it was very interesting for me. I actually spent a lot of time doing research. I sat with a lot of mothers who'd lost their children. I sat with gang members who were very violent people, who trusted to tell me their true stories. I spent time talking with police officers to get their feeling about what they do, how they feel. I spent so much time doing research, and then I made a decision on what stories I thought would fit, what made sense, who would be in this picture. So it starts off with the actual horrific murder of a store owner and a gang member fleeing the police. The police are trying to find him. And then they come up on a party of a lot of young black kids, and there's another guy that's wearing a blue shirt like the suspect, and they're ready to take him out because they think he's the one and it's not him. That's when the action stops. And we go back and find out who are these people in this picture, whose lives are getting ready to change forever. I play two different parts in the show. Okay. I play the wife of the bishop who has the biggest church in the country, biggest Baptist church, and his son, our son, David, is one of the young people who the story is about. He doesn't want to be a minister. He wants to use his music in rap, to connect with his community in that way, do his own way of preaching. And I play a Latina grandmother, Rosanna, who is a gang member herself.
Freeze Frame tackles many socially conscious issues that have made headlines over the years, from fighting for equal rights to addressing bullying in schools. Allen points out this is not just a black and white issue, but a human one. And in order for change to occur, a conversation must happen among everyone.
We have got to do this grassroots, city by city by city. And people have got to come together, voice their concerns, and then do something about it. We have to have this, nothing happens without a conversation.
But when artists get into the arena of pushing for social justice, which has political aspects to it, where are the potholes? Where are the sinkholes in this?
Well, the sinkholes are, how do you raise money to keep it going? Without naming names, I've talked to some really big corporations who want to, but their superiors are not letting them until after the election. They know that this is the right thing because this is coming from a dance academy, a dance world. This is not coming from a political leader or advocate that way. I'm dealing with my people, my kids every day. I'm looking at the kids whose lives will be compromised if we don't do something. No one expects their child to die when they go to the library at their own school. No one expects their child to die if they go to elementary school to their class. If Sandy Hook didn't change people's minds, they have got to be reminded. They have to.
So Jenifer, can we have a national discussion? Can we have community discussions about gun violence, or are we too polarized over this issue?
I think we can and we must. With 33,000 gun deaths a year in this country, the time is now, and I have to say that art has an important role in bringing this issue to light. As JFK used to say, that there's a direct correlation between how much our society progresses in art and how much we progress politically.
Your thoughts?
There is.
By the way, I did hear that of the 33,000 deaths, some half of them are suicides.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's often not mentioned. But you know, there's a long tradition of art and politics, and art really furthering a political discussion. I mean, Eugene O'Neill, even Shakespeare. Look at Julius Caesar and King Lear, Hamlet,
Bob Dylan.
And I mean, I think Romeo and Juliet is quite appropriate for our day and age today. So obviously, yes, Bob Dylan. So obviously, there's a long tradition of doing this, and I think it's so important to talk about gun violence in the Black community. She is a great messenger for that really important message.
What do you I mean, you're a politician dealing with these issues. Can there be a discussion, a community discussion, an across the differences discussion when there's an NRA that just wants every person with mental problems to be able to buy a newsie?
Well, I do think that there is a vocal majority out there that really does want to change the conversation, and I think art, and particularly performance art, opens the space to have that conversation across those lines. And art has always been a part of politics. Art is politics, and the question is whether we're going to get the message. But I think it opens the door in a different way, and among a group of people who are not always at the table as a part of that conversation.
I think it's a great initiative, and you know, even within the NRA, and I mean, nobody wants to have unpreventable deaths, especially in the context of terrorism and stuff. Like, you know, we should have the San Bernardino shooter, the Orlando shooter. They should not have been able to purchase guns, and that's a very serious debate that we need to have. And if we can bring it to light through art and through stage plays and whatnot, I think that's all the better.
I will just add that the NRA does not lobby on behalf of mentally ill people.
I was exaggerating.
I know. Uzis are already illegal.
You know,
but
and I apologize. I was exaggerating.
Okay. That's okay. But I think that it's really important also that we talk about the violence in inner cities. The deaths in Chicago are they're tragic, and the numbers just seem to go up. So I think I'm a big fan of Debbie Allen. I loved Fame. I watched it when I was little. So I think, again, she's a great messenger for this, and I think we do need it. She mentioned it needs to start at the grassroots. Certainly on the political level among politicians, the conversation's not going well. So maybe on the grassroots level, it will go a little better.
What about the police shootings? What about police training? Sure. I mean, that's a less of a hot button issue. Can we have a conversation about police training, so the first thing that comes into a police officer's mind is not necessarily, oh my God, this person's going to kill me? Well, because many have.
Well, you see the initiatives that have been taken by the International Association of Chiefs of Police around de-escalation training, and there was immediate pushback, though, from the Fraternal Order of Police around those kind of training techniques. But it isn't just one-time training, it's over and over again, and changing the culture of law enforcement when it interacts with communities, and transparency and accountability, and holding to account those who are the offenders within law enforcement. And look, I think that there is a strong vocal majority out there that wants sensible gun regulation and laws, and we need to elevate that vocal majority so that it becomes a political majority for a policy change.
Exactly. I think, you know, we all need to have a gun violence prevention debate, and we need to bring it to the forefront, especially for people, not just the inner cities, but I think at the larger national security, terrorism space. And we need to have diversity within law enforcement to make sure that, you know, law enforcement doesn't use force as their first response.
And art can be a powerful way to spawn a social movement, and we've seen this throughout our country's history. I mean, as far back as Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, which basically caused a national outcry against slavery. And then how did sexual harassment come to the forefront? We had serials on TV like 9 to 5 with Jane Fonda in it that really put the issue into the national consciousness. And I think that that's what we need here and what the Allen Initiative does.
But artists are, for the most part, going to be labeled as liberal, and will that hurt conservatives from getting engaged in conversations started by artists?
Well, I will say I think some of the best work on justice reform is being done by some conservative think tanks. And work to alleviate some of the problems in the inner city. So I don't think that they're necessarily mutually exclusive. I think that some of the artists that are doing this work, I think conservatives would applaud. I think justice reform is very important to conservatives.
All right, thank you all. We're out of time. Sorry, that's it for this edition. Please follow me on Twitter and visit our website, pbs.org/to the contrary. And whether you agree or think to the contrary, see you next week.